Warning. You will be listening to a series of cassette tapes. They were recorded by one man, alone, in the city of Yharnam. He is unidentified. He read one document at a time, and stopped the machine between each. You will hear it stop. Portions are distressing. He is not an impartial witness, but nothing he alleges has been found to be false.
The chairs in this office are still upright. The clerks are not. The lamps still work, though the oil is older than I should like, and the wicks have grown teeth. In front of me is every drawer they did not trouble to burn. Yharnam was a working city, and its principal industry was blood. The healing church put it in vials and charged for it. The city queued at the clinic doors and kept coming back. That is why there is paper in this office at all. When Yharnam fell, the people went, and the paper stayed, and I stayed with the paper. You may call me the Archivist. It is not my name. My name is on a hunter's roll at the workshop, in a hand that is not the church's, and it can stay there. What is in these drawers, the church wrote for itself. It kept the paper in cabinets, in pockets, on the walls. The roads are shut, and the harbor is worse, and a tape is a poor thing to leave in a city that burns as reliably as this one does. The cassettes will be found on the desk in front of cabinet 1, and should be read against the drawers. No one is coming for them, and I'm recording it anyway, and I would rather not look too hard at why. Cabinet 1, Drawer 1, Section A, Blood, Ministration, Protocols. Seek pale blood to transcend the hunt. That note was pinned to the door of a clinic in central Yharnam. A clinic kept by a woman named Iosefka. By the time I came to read it, the door was already in pieces on the cobbles. The hand is unknown to me. I have compared it against every clerk and notary on file in the Cathedral Ward, and against several hands I knew personally, and it matches none of them. Whoever wrote it in haste, and was not, I judge, much practiced. I have set it aside, unplaced, which is not a thing I like to do. It was, for a great many of them, the last thing they ever read. What follows is the file the church kept on what they found inside. Blood vial. Standard medical preparation. Special blood used in ministration. Once a patient has had their blood ministered. A unique but common treatment in Yharnam. Successive infusions recall the first, and are all the more invigorating for it. No surprise that most Yharnamites are heavy users of blood. And there it sits, in a hand so tiny you could hang it in a frame. The man who wrote that line was good at his work. I have read enough of him to say so. He believed the vials healed people. And he was right. And he wrote no surprise because it did not surprise him either. I should very much like to meet him one day. I will not. One man in the city would still talk to me. He came at me out of the dark on a Cathedral Ward street. and decided within a sentence what I was. A young hunter of the executioners, who wore a tabard and a smile, and was the most agreeable company I had in those final weeks. By which I mean to say, the only company.
You're a hunter, aren't you? I knew it. That's precisely how I started out. Oh, beg pardon. You may call me Alfred. Protege of Master Logarius, hunter of vile bloods. So, what say you? Our prey might differ, but we are hunters, the both of us. Why not cooperate and discuss the things we've learned?
There was nothing to correct. He had me at a glance, the way one tradesman knows another, and he was pleased about it. He believed in the church the way other men believe in the sun. So I asked him what it actually was.
The healing church and the blood ministers who belonged to it were once guardians of the hunters, in the times of the hunter Ludwig. Nowadays, they are the modest church of Yharnam, but they have deep roots. When the hunt began, the church aided the hunters. But that's ancient history now. Today, most of the church is corrupted. A tragedy, really. The church transformed into something alien, and the hunters who serve them gone mad with blood. The curse of the old blood, they say.
He spoke it the way one repeats a catechism. The curse of the old blood, they say, as though it were a line in a primer, to be learned and moved past. It did not occur to him to ask who had written the primer. He told me, too, where it had begun.
Byrgenwerth is a place of learning, where scholars lived. These scholars later founded the Healing Church, and split into choir and school of menses. The students of Byrgenwerth had an addiction to blood, especially old blood. Naturally, this led to unsavory outcomes.
Unsavory outcomes. He did not invent that phrase. He was taught it, along with the tabard, and he handed it to me the way a man repeats a word he has never once had to look at. The addicts in their white coats came down from the library on the hill, and they came down with a product, a treatment. Yharnam took it. There was a better grade of it, of course. The church called what it did in the back rooms of clinics like Iosefka's refinement. I used that word myself for years without once hearing it. It is a sugar word. Cane goes in one end, something white and expensive comes out the other. And nobody has to say aloud what was in the cane. Blood vial acquired from Iosefka's clinic. This refined blood, highly invigorating, restores a larger amount of HP. The product of a slow and careful refinement process. This rare blood vial appears to be a clinic original. The blood worked. A unique but common treatment, the first vial said. Common because it worked. The scourge was real, and so were the slower sicknesses beneath it. And the blood healed what no other medicine in any other city could touch. The dying were carried into Yharnam on carts, and they walked out of it. The queues outside the clinics formed because the cure was real, and the queues were long, and no one standing in them was a fool. Now, where the blood came from. Blood taken from Arianna, Cathedral Ward Woman of the Night. The sweet blood of Arianna restores HP and temporarily speeds stamina recovery. A member of the Old Healing Church would know that her blood is similar indeed to precisely that blood once forbidden. A woman of the night, filed beside the standard preparations, with a stock number. She kept a room above a chapel in the Cathedral Ward. I knew which window was hers. I never went up. I did, however, drink the vial. Once, a long time ago, before I understood what was written on the label, and a great many times after, when I understood very well. I was the buyer. The church was only the merchant, and the shop stays open because people keep coming to it. The words similar indeed to precisely that blood once forbidden are the church's own, set down in the church's own hand. They knew what she was, and what line she came from, and they harvested her anyway. Nobody was coming to ask after her. That is the whole of it. I have made that same calculation on a street about a man whose name I never learned, and it took me less time than it takes to say so. That is what the word on the label meant. The next file is worse, because the next file is consensual. Blood taken from Adella, nun of the Healing Church. Restores HP and increases all defenses. The Healing Church nuns are chosen for their merits as vessels for blood, and groomed as blood saints. The mere chance of being treated with her blood lends legitimacy to the Healing Church and communion. Chosen, groomed, vessels. 3 words, each of which would do just as well for an object. Somewhere there, mid-sentence, the church's own paperwork forgets that Adella is a woman. She believed whoever files her should begin there. The nuns believed. They volunteered. They prayed before each draw. And when the church told them their blood was holy, and being drawn from them was a blessing, a communion in the church's word, they gave. The blood saints were not the victims of the church the way Arianna was. They were the church. The last file in this drawer is a transcript, a patient intake. The church recorded what was said at the clinic window when someone new came to Yharnam looking for help. This is what they heard.
Oh yes, pale blood. Well, you've come to the right place. Yharnam is the home of blood ministration. You need only unravel its mystery. But where's an outsider like yourself to begin? Easy, with a bit of Yharnam blood of your own. But first, you'll need a contract.
That is how it began. For every one of them. A kind voice. A clinic window. A reasonable suggestion. And a contract no one read past the first line. Because the first line was, we can help. That is the end of section A, and the next drawer is labeled personnel. The doctors and the hunters. The ones in white and the ones in black. I shall come to them in turn. But you should know this. By the time the church was harvesting Adella, by the time the recipes had names and stock numbers and clinic originals, Every one of those people had already signed the same contract. They did not yet know it. Cabinet 1, Drawer 2, Section B, Personnel. There were two kinds of men in the healing church. The church kept a third designation for its women, Saint, but we have already filed her. For the men, only ever the two, the white coats and the black. The file on the white coats opens to the description of the coat itself, which tells you what the church thought a man was made of. It was not wrong. I have watched a coat do the work of a character on men I knew by name. Attire of special church doctors. These doctors are superiors to the black preventative hunters and specialists in experimentally backed blood ministration and the scourge of the beast. They believe that medicine is not a means of treatment, but rather a method for research, and that some knowledge can only be obtained by exposing oneself to sickness. That is the doctrine, printed in the handbook and handed to a man along with his coat. The second half of it is a loophole. The white coat could not simply infect a patient and call it good practice. He had, at some level, to infect himself. A great many of them finished in the wards instead of the coats. I have walked those wards. The doors locked from the corridor side, and someone specified that. I have a chart from one of those rooms, filled in twice a day in a clerk's hand for 11 weeks. Temperature, pulse, appetite, response to ministration. It carries no document code. I took it from the room myself, and I filed it nowhere. At the foot of the form there is a line for the attending physician to sign. For 3 weeks it is signed. After that it's left blank. And the entries carry on in the same clerk's hand, twice a day as before. The form stops saying who was attending. It does not stop recording him. In the 9th week, in the space the form reserves for the patient's own statement of complaint, the clerk has written one line. He asks whether he is still on the roster. The chart runs 2 weeks past that, and then it stops. Attire of special church hunters. The church provided hunters with this black attire, which helped mask the fact. What fact can a coat conceal? Which helped mask the fact that the huntsmen they once were had been commandeered by the church. Most healing church hunters are elementary doctors who understand the importance of early prevention of the scourge. Hunters are the first to see the signs of the scourge of beasts. The huntsmen had hunted beasts. Now they hunted the church's patients, and the church preferred this not to be seen. There were healing church hunters before the church was a hunting institution, and Yharnam hunters before there was a church at all. The men in black are men who were one thing and were made into another. The making was uniformed, paid, and quiet. An elementary doctor, the file calls him. They gave him a saw cleaver, called him a doctor, and sent him out at night to find the first signs of the scourge of beasts. In practice, the first signs looked a great deal like men. Men who screamed when he came to the door. Men who tried to run. The church called this early prevention. I was never issued the black. I have turned that distinction over for a long while now, to see whether it is worth anything. And it is not. I walked the same streets, on the same nights, for reasons of my own, and I was better at it than most of the men in this file. The church issued that cleaver, but did not make it. Tools came from the workshop, and the workshop belonged to a man called German. One file in this drawer belongs to neither coat. It belongs to the young hunter with the tabard. He served a sect, old enough to have once stood beside the church. Counted himself a soldier in the same war, and was never on the church's roster at all. Of everything he said to me on that street, one clause has never found a drawer. Our prey might differ. The blackcoat hunted the citizen who had caught the scourge. The whitecoat, the citizen who had not. Yet, Alfred's prey was a queen on a throne in a castle to the north. Her line, her descendants, and the woman in the room above the chapel he never knew to look for. Cabinet 1, Drawer 3, Section C, Blood Saint Operations. I have a pair of shoes here. One heel is worn through, and the other is barely marked. She went the same way on the same side for years. I know the stair she used. I have stood at the bottom of it. I never went up while she was alive. I went up afterwards to get these. The church kept more than blood on its patients. It kept their clothes and filed them where it filed the yield. Arianna's shoes. Shoes of Arianna, woman of the night. Slightly enhances stamina recovery. Her refined blood is similar to Queen Annalise's. Of this, some of the older members of the Healing Church are aware. Not the young doctors, then, and not the freshly coated black attire. The older members. The part of the church that remembered, which is the part that had decided. The noble dress. A dress worn by Arianna. This refined piece of clothing is embroidered with gold thread and tailored for a person of high status. Arianna is a descendant of the vile bloods of Cainhurst, though she is unaware of this. The church is declared heretics. The church put that in the same clause as the gold thread. Nobody asked her. I could have. I lived 4 streets away. Adella was asked. She said yes. White church dress. Attire of a sister of the Healing Church. The Healing Church nuns are chosen for their merits as vessels for blood, and groomed as... No. I have read that once tonight already. Its coatmen were meant to have read that phrase often enough that, in the hour they stood over her with the needle, they would not hesitate. The church wrote with great specificity on what her blood would do for the patient. Restores HP. Increases all defenses. 2 clauses, catalogued and numbered. There were files on every kind of employment under its roof. And every one of them carries a clause. What became of the holder after? Hers is the only one I have found in this cabinet, that stops at the yield. The church kept records of everything it thought it might be asked for, and let the rest go unwritten. My judgment, and I will defend it, is that the church never wrote Adella's after clause, because it never imagined to be asked for one. The blood saints were not expected to live long enough to need it. 3 words for what was done to her. There is no fourth in the file. Used. The church declined to write it. Her sisters declined to ask, and Adella, who believed, prayed before each draw, and gave, and gave, and gave again. There is a third attachment in this drawer, a personnel file on the clinic in Central Yharnam. The woman who ran it was a doctor of the healing church, a junior officer of the White Coats, who produced the clinic original I read to you an hour ago. The warm voice at the patient window was hers. It was hers for a while, and then it was not. And the file does not record the day it changed hands. Somebody else has been working that window in her coat, using that voice. And the church either failed to notice or declined to write it down. I was in that clinic twice. I did not notice either. The last drawer in tonight's cabinet is labeled Crisis Management, and it is the thinnest of the 4. It holds a few unfinished documents, and 1 note in a hand I've not been able to place. It is thin because in the final weeks, the church stopped keeping up with its filing. I set that down as a housekeeping remark, and I have only now heard what it does to me. An hour ago I told you the church left Adella's after clause blank, because it never expected to be asked for one. A clerk who has given up filing leaves the same blank and means nothing at all by it. So I went back to drawer 3 to settle it. Every other form in there is complete, in 1 hand, dated the same week. That is not evidence of intent. It is the absence of an excuse, and I have spent the better part of an hour trying to make it into more than that. I wanted them to have meant it. I want that on the record before I read the rest of this drawer, because it is the sort of thing that bends a man's reading of a document, and mine is the only reading you have. This town is long abandoned. Hunters not wanted here. A sign nailed to a post at the foot of a bridge. The bridge burned shortly after. The town, in the days that followed. The man who lit the match kept vigil over what he had done for the rest of his nights. Antidote. A pungent medical concoction, bitter to the taste, heals poison status, making it invaluable for hunters. This simple medicine calls for a measure of poison resistance, which developed in the stagnant air of the Forbidden Woods. The church has distributed this antidote in Old Yharnam since the scourge of Ashen blood. The church created the conditions for the scourge, distributed the antidote to it, and, I am assuming this, I have no invoice for it, charged for the antidote. And it distributed that antidote in Old Yharnam, the same town it then abandoned, the same town it then burned. 4 documents and 1 assumption. In an order I put them in. The drawer did not come arranged that way. With the 6 still in it, the church will tell you the things in those streets were no longer people. The things in those streets had names, and clinic records, and antidotes in their pockets that the church had handed to them while the oil was already being carried to the bridge. Medicinal tablets that unleash the beast. Ripping apart the flesh of one's enemies and being rained upon by their splattering blood invigorates one's sense of beasthood, feeding strength and euphoric feeling alike. The remaining file in this drawer is the note. A single sheet, torn from something larger. The hand is uneven, and the ink is brown, as though it were written years before the rest of the drawer was filled. Or written in something that was not properly ink. I found it pinned to a wall in the Cathedral Ward, scratched into the lintel of a workshop door, and once on the back of a church requisition order, signed by the senior administrator I should very much like to one day meet. The same 4 words each time, in a different hand and a different ink. The church didn't catalog it, and did not, I believe, quite know what to do with it. It is too short to be heresy, and too forceful to be advice. It names no author, and in no version I have found, signs itself. That is the 3rd document tonight I cannot put a name to. The clinic door, the ward chart after week 3, and this. The note reads as follows. Fear the old blood. That is all. Someone wrote that and chose not to sign it. They were warned. I slide the last drawer shut. When I came to this office, the records were undisturbed. No one had broken in, and nothing had been burned. The clerks had put down their pens and left. In the middle of an ordinary week, the way men leave a room they expect to be standing in again. I do not think they meant the paper to be read. I think they expected it to outlive them quietly, in a drawer, where nobody would put questions to it. I have put questions to it all night, and not one of them was on the city's behalf. There is one thing here that was never filed. Adella's file is missing its after clause. The porters were given one, and so were the bellkeepers. I am not a clerk of the Healing Church, but there is no one else in the building, and the form requires an entry, and I find that I know the word. Used. Let it sit in their own cabinet, in a hand tidy enough to hang in a frame. I have not signed it. Let whoever comes after try to place the hand. I cannot prove they meant her to end that way. I spent an hour on it tonight, and the drawer that should have settled it was too thin to hold an answer. But the form wants an entry, and she's dead and used. The lamp is good for another hour, I judge. I shall spend it on the next cabinet.